Each rung represents a financial decision: spending, saving, investing, and finally, freedom. The problem is, most of us keep running in circles at the bottom instead of stepping onto the very first rung. Nick Maggiulli, the author of Just Keep Buying, a book that made waves in the personal finance community, has returned with an even more powerful idea: the wealth ladder. He describes it as a financial ladder anyone can climb, as long as they take the right steps. There's no magical leap that will land you at the top instantly, but nothing is stopping you from starting today. In this video, we'll break down each rung of the ladder in a clear and practical way, so wealth no longer feels out of reach. And if you'd like to keep moving forward on this journey, make sure to hit like and subscribe so you won't miss the next insights. Part 1. Creating Financial Breathing Room. Nick Maggiulli highlights a simple but often overlooked truth. Before you can climb any rung of the wealth ladder, you need financial breathing room. This doesn't just mean having leftover cash after expenses. It's the cushion, the flexibility that gives you options when life throws a curveball. Think about it this way. If you spend nearly every dollar you earn each month, you're walking a tightrope. Lose your job, face a health issue, or get hit with an unexpected expense, and your entire life can spiral into chaos. On the other hand, if you have breathing room, cash on hand, savings, or well-managed expenses, you're in control. Life shocks may shake you, but they won't knock you down. One study in the US found that nearly 60% of people couldn't come up with $1,000 in an emergency. That means a broken car, a surprise medical bill, or even an over-budget vacation could push them straight into credit card debt. Meanwhile, those with an emergency fund or simply living below their means report feeling far less stress. They know they have solid ground to stand on when problems arise, rather than panicking. Maggiulli calls this the first step on the financial ladder. You can't invest successfully, and you certainly can't dream of financial freedom without a strong foundation. Creating financial breathing room may not be glamorous, but it's like building the foundation of a house. No one sees it, but skip it, and the entire structure could collapse. Take a simple, everyday example. A middle-class American family earning $80,000 a year. If they set aside just 10%, around $8,000 annually, for an emergency fund, within a few years, they'd have a solid cushion to avoid falling into debt when setbacks happen. This breathing room won't make them rich overnight, but it's the key to moving up to the next rungs: investing, building wealth, and ultimately, freedom. In other words, creating financial breathing room means buying peace of mind before buying wealth. Part 2. Idle cash as leverage. Nick Maggiulli emphasizes a mindset many people often overlook. Idle cash isn't wasted money, it's leverage that allows you to seize opportunities. In personal finance, many Americans fall into two extremes: either leaving all their money sitting in a low-interest savings account or investing every single dollar in the market without keeping any reserves. Both approaches are risky. Why? Because markets are always volatile and opportunities often come unexpectedly. Without dry powder ready to take advantage, you'll miss those golden moments. Maggiulli shares a key principle: always keep some idle cash to take advantage of uncertainty. When crises hit, when the stock market drops sharply, or when real estate prices fall steeply, it's the people with cash on hand who can buy at bargain prices. Take 2020, for example. When the COVID pandemic broke out, US stock markets plunged. Many investors panicked and sold off their shares, but a small group with cash reserves bought more stock in strong companies like Apple, Amazon, and Microsoft. Within a year, their portfolios had doubled or even tripled in value. Idle cash is like a safety parachute. It won't make you soar higher on sunny days, but it can save your life when the storm hits. If you pour all your money into short-term investments with no cash buffer, a single unexpected shock, like losing your job or a market crash, could force you to sell in a panic. Consider another everyday example. A couple in Texas earning $100,000 a year. If they consistently set aside $20,000 as strategic reserves, then when a small real estate opportunity comes up, say a discounted apartment from a seller who needs quick cash, they can jump in immediately. Meanwhile, Those without idle cash can only watch the opportunity slip away. Maggiulli calls idle cash the power of patience. It isn't wasteful, it's a weapon that keeps you in control. Because true wealth doesn't just come from investing well, but from having the ability to act at the right moment.
Part 3. Smart investing means keeping it simple. Nick Maggiulli points out one of the biggest mistakes individual investors make, believing that building wealth requires complicated investments. In reality, the opposite is true. The simpler the strategy, the more effective it often is. Most people get swept up in the flood of information. Hot stocks, crypto, real estate, corporate bonds, hedge funds, even NFTs. They think success means grabbing everything and diversifying to the extreme. But historical data shows that the simplest strategies are often the ones that deliver the most sustainable returns. Maggiulli suggests that instead of chasing every new trend, stick to core principles. Choose investments that are easy to understand. Focus on assets that have stood the test of time, like the S&P 500 index. Stay disciplined for the long term instead of constantly jumping in and out. Remember, Warren Buffett, one of the greatest investors of all time, once said, "Investing doesn't require a stratospheric IQ, it just requires you to avoid dumb mistakes." He's long encouraged the average investor to simply buy low-cost index funds and hold them for the long run, rather than trying to beat the market. Here's a powerful example. Imagine a typical American investing $500 a month into an S&P 500 index fund starting in 1990. Despite the dot-com crash in 2000, the financial crisis in 2008, and the COVID crash in 2020, by today their portfolio would be worth over $1 million, all from one single strategy: simple, patient, and disciplined investing. By contrast, those who chased hot stocks, followed random social media advice, or jumped into trendy assets they didn't truly understand often ended up empty-handed. The financial markets don't reward complexity. They usually punish greed and impatience. Smart investing isn't about proving you're smarter than everyone else. It's about choosing the least risky, most effective path to achieve financial freedom. Part 4. Building skills and income. Nick Maggiulli emphasizes a powerful truth. The money you have today is simply a reflection of the skills and abilities you built in the past. To climb to the higher rungs of the wealth ladder, you can't just rely on cutting expenses or tweaking your budget. You have to increase your earning power. It sounds obvious, but many people miss this point. They'll spend hours figuring out how to save $5 with a coupon, yet won't dedicate even 30 minutes a day to learning a new skill that could boost their annual income by thousands of dollars. In his book, Maggiulli stresses that income is the fuel for your entire financial journey. Without a strong cash inflow, it's nearly impossible to invest meaningfully or build long-term wealth. And that inflow doesn't come only from your current job. It comes from your ability to adapt, learn, and create new value. Just look at today's U.S. job market. An office worker with only basic skills could be replaced by AI or automation. But someone with specialized expertise, like AI programming, data analysis, user experience design, or strategic management, will always have stronger bargaining power, higher pay, and far less risk of being left behind. And it's not just technical skills that matter. Soft skills like communication, leadership, negotiation, and networking are what set people apart. They're the difference between someone who works hard and someone who works smart. A clear example is Jeff Bezos in his early career. He wasn't just a talented investment banker. He also immersed himself in learning about technology and the emerging internet. That unique mix of financial acumen and tech insight allowed him to spot the opportunity that became Amazon, an opportunity thousands of other bankers completely missed. Maggiulli calls this human leverage. As your skills become rarer and more valuable, you can turn 1 hour of work into 10 or 20 times the income of the average person. And it's this surplus income that enables you to save, invest, and climb the financial ladder faster. When you compare people who remain stuck living paycheck to paycheck with those who gradually break free, the key difference isn't in how many extra hours they work. It's in how much they invest in themselves above all else.
Part 5. Thinking in Life Stages. One of the standout points in The Wealth Ladder is Nick Maggiulli's reminder that financial strategy is never fixed. It changes with each stage of life. If you apply the same mindset at 60 that you had at 20, you'll end up locking yourself into poor decisions. In early adulthood, right after college or when you're just starting your career, the most important goal isn't buying a house or planning for retirement, it's building skills and creating a stable income. This is the time to take more risks, try new jobs, or even launch a small business. Mistakes at 25 are far cheaper than mistakes at 55. By your 30s and 40s, however, the strategy shifts. At this stage, you're balancing family responsibilities with your career. Money isn't just for yourself anymore. It's for your kids and possibly for aging parents too. Maggiulli stresses the importance of building an emergency fund and having insurance, because unexpected risks, illness, job loss, or economic downturns can deeply affect the entire family. At the same time, this is when you should start investing consistently and seriously, not just saving. After 50, the mindset changes again. It's no longer about who can earn the most, but who can protect and use their wealth most wisely. Maggiulli advises focusing on the sustainability of your portfolio, not chasing risky bets. You don't have 20 or 30 years left to recover from big mistakes, so safety matters more than ever. This is also the time to think about legacy, not only the money you'll leave to your children, but also the mindset and financial knowledge you pass down. Take Warren Buffett, for example. He has often said that most of his massive wealth came after age 50, thanks to compounding and patience. Yet he never splurged just to reward himself. Instead, he maintained a simple lifestyle while preparing to donate most of his fortune to charity. His story shows how each life stage demands a different financial perspective. The key message is this: don't copy someone else's financial strategy if they're at a different stage of life. A 25-year-old aggressively saving every dollar to invest in stocks makes sense, but a 55-year-old without health insurance or an emergency fund? That's a serious mistake. Maggiulli calls this the principle of the financial ladder. You need to know which rung you're standing on and what the next step should be. Wealth isn't a single destination, it's a personal journey that shifts with every stage of life. Part 6. Habits matter more than the perfect strategy. Many of us are obsessed with finding the perfect financial strategy. Which stock should I buy? Should I invest in gold, Bitcoin, or chase the highest yielding ETF? But Nick Maggiulli emphasizes this truth. Long-term wealth isn't built on the perfect strategy. It's built on the habits you can stick with every day. Picture this. One person chooses the right investment strategy, but quits after a few months because they're too busy, too tired, or lose confidence. Meanwhile, another person follows a simple plan, say regularly investing in an S&P 500 index fund, and keeps at it for 10 or 20 years. Who ends up wealthier? Clearly, the one with consistent habits, not the one chasing the perfect plan. Maggiulli gives a down-to-earth comparison. It's like exercising. You don't need a complicated workout program. Walking 30 minutes a day for 10 years will make you far healthier than someone constantly switching to the latest miracle gym routine they only stick with for a few weeks. Finance works the same way. Habits matter more than strategies. One of the most important habits highlighted in The Wealth Ladder is automation. When you set up automatic transfers to savings or investments as soon as your paycheck arrives, you remove willpower and emotions from the equation. Your money works for you even when you're not paying attention. Maggiulli also stresses the habit of continuous learning. The financial world constantly shifts. New technologies, new investment trends, new policies. If you don't make a habit of staying informed, you'll fall behind, even if your old strategy once worked well. The key is this: don't chase perfection, chase consistency. An average strategy applied steadily will always outperform a brilliant strategy abandoned after a few months. It's the small, repeated habits that form the foundation of your steady climb up the financial ladder. Maggiulli sums it up with a memorable philosophy: wealth isn't built in a day, but in daily habits. Looking back, The Wealth Ladder isn't just a book about money. It's more like a roadmap, guiding us step by step from creating financial breathing room, making the most of idle cash, investing wisely, building skills, shaping our mindset for each stage of life, and most importantly, sticking to consistent habits. Nick Maggiulli's core message is crystal clear. Wealth doesn't come from a lucky break. It comes from small, steady steps, repeated every single day. You don't need to be a financial genius. You just need patience and discipline. If today you start with just one small habit, saving a little, reading one page of a finance book, putting a few dollars into an index fund, or simply spending 30 minutes a day listening to financial audiobooks on this channel, you've planted a new seed of thought. After a year, those tiny seeds can grow into a forest of knowledge, transforming the way you see money and life. And if you found this video helpful, hit the like button to show your support, and subscribe so you don't miss future insights on books, finance, and investing. Because on this journey, you're not walking with just one book. You're part of a whole community climbing the wealth ladder together.